Run your tongue across your teeth right now. Feel the smooth enamel. Feel the ridge where a filling sits, or the spot where a dentist once drilled and patched and polished without you feeling a thing. You probably don't think about your teeth much. Maybe twice a day, half asleep, for 2 minutes at the sink. It's routine. It's forgettable. But for over 300,000 years, every single one of your ancestors carried the exact same 32 bones in their mouths, and almost none of them had a professional to call when something went wrong. Today, roughly 90% of American adults have had at least one cavity in their permanent teeth, according to the National Institute of Dental and Craniofacial Research. Now compare that to skeletal evidence from populations that lived before farming existed. Some hunter-gatherer groups, studied by bioarchaeologists, show cavity rates below 2%, no toothbrushes, no fluoride, no dental chairs, and somehow, better teeth than most of us have now. How is that even possible? The answer starts with what your ancestors ate. It gets stranger from there. Go back 49,000 years, to a limestone cave in northern Spain called El Cidrón. In 2012, biomolecular archaeologist Karen Hardy and her team examined something most people would walk right past: dental calculus, the hardened plaque still clinging to a set of Neanderthal teeth. Calculus is just fossilized tartar, the same sticky film your own dentist scrapes off with a metal pick, except this sample had been sealed shut for tens of thousands of years, untouched. Inside it, Hardy's team found microscopic starch granules from cooked plants. They also found something else, buried in the chemical signature: traces of poplar bark. Poplar bark contains salicylic acid. That is the same compound your bottle of aspirin is built around. One of the Neanderthal individuals examined had a dental abscess, a painful pocket of infection at the root of a tooth, along with signs of an intestinal parasite. He appears to have been self-medicating his pain with plant-based chemistry, tens of thousands of years before the first pharmacy existed, before your species had even fully replaced his in Europe. That's the first shock. Pain relief for a toothache is not a modern invention. It may not even be a purely human one. Now fast forward to roughly 12,000 years ago, when everything about the human diet changed at once. Farming began. Wild game and foraged roots gave way to dense, starchy staples: wheat, barley, rice. Bioarchaeologist Clark Spencer Larson has spent decades comparing skeletons from before and after this shift, across dozens of ancient populations on multiple continents. The pattern he found was remarkably consistent. Cavity rates climbed sharply the moment agriculture took hold. Why would growing your own food make your teeth worse? Because sticky, sugar-rich carbohydrates feed the bacteria that cause decay far more efficiently than lean meat and fibrous wild plants ever did. Your mouth didn't change, your food did. In other words, the invention of farming, the very thing that allowed cities, writing, and civilization to exist at all, was also the moment your ancestors' teeth started falling apart. That's the second shock. The healthiest teeth in the entire archaeological record don't belong to the most advanced societies. They belong to the people who ate the least, like we do now. But even before farming fully took over, some communities were already confronting decay directly and doing something about it that sounds almost impossible for the time. At a site called Mehrgarh, in what is now Pakistan, researchers Roberto Macchiarelli and David Freyer studied 9 adult skeletons dating back roughly 7,500 to 9,000 years. 11 of their molars showed something unmistakable under the microscope: small, precise, cone-shaped holes drilled directly into the enamel. The marks matched a specific tool, a bow drill tipped with flint, the same technology early humans used to spin fire and shape beads, repurposed for a molar. Picture the scene. No metal instruments, no numbing agent, no suction, no waiting room with old magazines. Just one person sitting completely still while another kneels beside them, pressing a spinning flint point into a living tooth, drilling out decayed material by hand, one careful rotation at a time. There was no anesthesia because anesthesia didn't exist yet. There was only the decision that this was better than the alternative. Why endure that at all? Because untreated decay doesn't stay quiet. It spreads into the nerve, then the jaw, sometimes into the bloodstream itself. A hole drilled on purpose was, to them, a smaller risk than doing nothing. That's the third shock: deliberate dental treatment, recognizing decay, selecting a tool, executing a procedure with precision, existed roughly 4,000 years before anyone on Earth invented the wheel. The story keeps moving forward. In Slovenia, archaeologist Federico Bernardini led a 2012 study on a jawbone roughly 6,500 years old. Inside one worn canine tooth, his team found something packed into a vertical crack running through the enamel toward the nerve. Chemical analysis confirmed it: beeswax. Someone, possibly the person themselves, had used it to seal the crack, most likely to dull the pain and keep bacteria from working their way inward. It is, as far as current evidence shows, the oldest known dental filling on the planet. Not gold, not porcelain. Wax from a beehive, packed into a tooth by hand, 6,500 years before your last filling. By the time you reach ancient Egypt, dental problems were common enough to require a dedicated title. Around 2600 BCE, a man named Hesi-Re served in the court of Pharaoh Djoser. His tomb inscription names him as the greatest of those who deal with teeth, the earliest known written reference to someone whose job was specifically dentistry. Egyptian medical papyri from this era describe treatments for loose or infected teeth, including binding them together with thin gold wire. That is an early version of the dental splint your orthodontist still uses today, just with far better metal. Move forward again into medieval Europe, and dental care takes a rougher turn entirely. For centuries, extractions weren't handled by physicians at all. They were handled by barbers, the same people cutting hair and performing bloodletting, using pliers, string, and a steady hand. There was no legal separation yet between barber and surgeon. That distinction wasn't formalized in England until 1745, when surgeons finally broke away to form their own profession. Dentistry itself wouldn't fully split off from general medicine for roughly another century after that. So somewhere between a Neanderthal chewing poplar bark and a Neolithic farmer holding still under a spinning flint drill, the basic instinct behind dental care was already fully formed. It just kept getting refined, tool by tool, generation by generation. Which brings you back to right now. You have fluoride toothpaste, you have injectable anesthetic, digital x-rays, suction, and a dentist who trained for roughly 8 years before ever touching your mouth. By almost any measure, modern dental technology is the most advanced version of itself that has ever existed. So why hasn't the cavity rate collapsed to match it? The World Health Organization estimates that untreated tooth decay affects roughly 2 billion people worldwide in their permanent teeth alone, making it the single most common health condition on the planet. Not heart disease, not diabetes, cavities. The tools got better. The diet got worse, and for tens of thousands of years before refined sugar existed at all, your ancestors' single biggest defense against decay wasn't a drill, or wax, or gold wire. It was simply what they weren't eating. So the next time you run your tongue across your teeth, you're not just checking for smoothness. You're touching the same 32 bones a Neanderthal once nursed with tree bark, that a Neolithic farmer once had drilled by hand, that an Egyptian official once bound shut with wire, and that a medieval barber once yanked free with pliers and nerve. Your ancestors never needed a diploma on the wall to understand pain, infection, or the value of a working set of teeth. They needed exactly what you already have, and mostly take for granted: a mouth worth protecting and the will to do something about it, however primitive the tools in hand. That's the story. If your brain just flinched at any of that, good. It's still mostly wild under there. See you in the next one.